Just before the first panel of Fainting Robin Foundation's Cambodian and Vietnamese Highlander conference began, decorated Green Beret Ron Copley rose and addressed the Montagnards who had traveled from different parts of North Carolina to attend the event. Copley thanked them for their loyalty to U.S. Special Forces during the Vietnam War and added that he would probably not be alive without them. Some in the audience, like YSIU Long and Y Duen Boondap, were once soldiers of the United Front for the Struggle of Oppressed Races, better known as FULRO, a Montagnard resistance movement that sought autonomy from Vietnam. FULRO, as well as Montagnards trained by U.S. Special Forces as Civilian Irregular Defense Forces, CIDG, began fighting the Vietnamese during the early 1960s. By the time the U.S. withdrew from Southeast Asia in 1975, 85% of Montagnard villages had been destroyed and half of their adult males were dead. FULRO's remaining 10,000 soldiers continued to fight the Vietnamese after the U.S. withdrawal. Even though 8,000 of their men had been captured or killed by 1979, they launched attacks against the Vietnam troops into the early 1990s. YSIU Long and Y Duen Boondap both thanked the Green Beret for his heartfelt words and told him that they did not blame him for the political decisions that set their people's tragedy into motion. After this public act of contrition and forgiveness, it was clear to everyone assembled at UNCW's Warwick Hall that this would not be a typical academic conference. Few know that today North Carolina boasts the largest population of indigenous Highlanders from Vietnam and Cambodia outside of Southeast Asia. Commonly and collectively referred to as Montagnards, they number more than 1 million people in Cambodia and Vietnam and come from more than 30 distinct ethnicities, including Jarai, Eid Bonner, Bunong, Stiang, Coho, Lach, Sadang, Raglai, Hre, and Bru. In Vietnam, Montagnards were also America's most valiant allies during the Vietnam War. We fought alongside them from 1962 until 1973. We loved them. They were a sturdy, reliable people. They were brave, and many of them saved many of our lives, wrote retired Green Beret Jim Morris. Although U.S. government officials promised to continue supporting FULRO forces even after the U.S. withdrawal in 1975, instead they were abandoned and faced va victis, woe to the conquered. The Highlanders were left to face a Vietnamese government not just intent on revenge, they wanted to repopulate the Central Highlands with Vietnamese lowlanders. The Montagnard people and the Americans are like one family. One of the last FULRO soldiers to lay down his arms told reporter Nate Thayer in 1992. I am not angry, but very sad that the Americans forgot us. The Americans are like our elder brother, so it is very sad when your brother forgets you. By the mid-1980s, many believed that FULRO had been completely wiped out. Human rights officials and American veterans were stunned when a group of FULRO fighters arrived in a Thai refugee camp in 1986. They had spent the better part of a year eluding Khmer Rouge and Vietnamese army troops, crossing on foot to Thailand. Although they were eventually resettled in North Carolina, the soldiers said that hundreds of their comrades remained in makeshift camps in the remote, malaria-ridden forests of Cambodia's Mondulkiri province. Not only did they live off the land, they also continued to attack the Vietnamese lowlanders they so despised. Here we are free, one FULRO leader told Thayer. The communists will not let us pray. They say that Christianity is an American and French religion, so we came to live in the jungle. When Thayer found the last FULRO faction deep in the Mondulkiri forest in 1992, he was the first white man they had seen in 17 years. The first thing they asked the reporter, in English no less, was if he had orders or knew the whereabouts of their leader Y Ba Manul. When Thayer informed them that he had been executed by the Khmer Rouge in 1975, some wept while others refused to believe him. One of the FULRO leaders asked for three things: proof Y Ba Manul was dead, the arms the Americans had promised 17 years earlier, and a meeting with the American ambassador. I have a plan for the future, and they should know clearly our position for the revolutionary struggle, he said. We want to know whether they will help us or not. The Americans had a whole plan for Indochina. Before the 398 FULRO soldiers and their families boarded the Russian helicopters that would take them on the first leg of their journey to America, they surrendered 194 old but perfectly maintained weapons, 2,567 rounds of ammunition, and a single M79 grenade launcher with one round. Hardest hit by the news that their abandoned comrades were not only alive, but still resisting the Vietnamese, were the American veterans who served with them, especially the veterans of Army Special Forces. In short order, an unlikely alliance of Vietnam veterans, human rights officials, missionaries, reporters, U.S. government officials, and others began working across party lines to get successive waves of Highlanders from the jungles of Mondulkiri to North Carolina. Not only did North Carolina's Vietnam veterans help their former allies gain political asylum, many were there to greet them when they arrived at Charlotte Douglas International Airport in December of 1992. Don Wolford, an Army Special Forces medic, showed one reporter a Vietnam-era photograph of himself with 2 Montagnards. "These people are our friends. They were very loyal to us," he said. Veterans, church groups, and others who helped the refugees settle in Raleigh, Greensboro, and Charlotte were amazed by their work ethic and stoicism. "They don't sit around and brood about how rough it is," said Margaret Pierce, director of a Catholic refugee relief agency in Charlotte that helped house and teach them English. "They are very smart people and hit the ground running. They are the survivors of the survivors." The next waves of refugees came to North Carolina after Montagnards held protests in Vietnam's Central Highlands in 2001, 2004, and 2008, calling for religious freedom, land rights, and an end to ethnic discrimination. When the Vietnamese government responded with force, thousands of Highlander families fled on foot for the forests of Cambodia's Mondulkiri and Rattanakorea provinces. Even though the Montagnards met the terms of the United Nations 1951 Convention on Refugees, any person with a well-founded fear of being persecuted for race, religion, nationality, social group, or political opinion, the Cambodian government forcibly returned many of them to Vietnam. Once again, the unlikely alliance of Vietnam veterans, human rights officials, missionaries, reporters, and U.S. government officials reactivated their underground railroad to get the Highlanders from Cambodia into North Carolina.